Peace to the family. Peace, peace, peace. Get something to drink. Be right back. Peace, y'all. Peace. Peace to the family. Peace, peace, peace. Peace, y'all. Peace, love, and light. Welcome back. Greetings. We got a lot to discuss. Peace, peace. We got a lot to discuss. Shout out to Soul Society, Live Water. All right, that's that good alkaline right here. Feel me? Stay hydrated, regardless of what's going on in your life right now, wherever you at. Stay hydrated. All right, make that a priority. Stay hydrated and get the good hydration as well. Do not drink purified water wherever you at. Make this a public service announcement, and please tell your friends and your families. If you research water, if you Google water, and you ask them, what is purified water? They're going to tell you purified water is like toilet water recycled. Feel me? It's a little bit worse than tap water. Purified water is no good. Right? They have standardized tests that you can do on your water. You can get a pH strip. You can find pH strips from places where they sell, the tanks with aqua. What you call them joints? Shit that you put the fishies in. Aquariums, right? You can find pH strips anywhere that they sell aquariums at. You know what I'm saying? And you can do your test for yourself to see what the pH level is of purified water. You do not want to drink purified water. You do not want to drink Dasani. You do not want to drink Aquafina. Aquafina is toilet water. On a pH strip, it has an acidic pH reading. Some of them registered near 2. So a neutral pH is 7. Right? Our body has a natural pH, a neutral pH of about 7.2 or 7.3, right? So you shouldn't even be looking for anything that's alkaline above 8 point, or really you should not even look for anything that's alkaline of 0.7, because your body really cannot do anything with it unless you are in a detrimental acidic state. That's the only time that you should be delving in alkaline products that are over 7.8, like 8.0 or 9 point whatever. But you really should not be exposing your body to any water that is registering in the acidic state, especially something this around 2. That's toilet water. You feel me? That's toilet water. And purified water is going to register very low. Aquafina and Dasani, they're going to register the lowest. Right? They're controlled by Coca-Cola and sold in gas stations for a reason. Right? That water's compromised. Now this live alkaline water from a melanated proprietor, our brothers up in North Carolina, Soul Society, yeah, they have some naturally sourced water that comes from a naturally flowing aquifer, which is an underground ocean, and it's melanated on melanated land that comes from the melanated man. So that segues perfect into like what I want to talk about. I've been seeing a lot of response, a lot of feedback about a post that I put up about the Amish. You know, if you may have missed the post, I'll throw it up here right now. And this post about the Amish was speaking about them having a negative cancer and autism rate. And I don't believe the research, but it's a wonderful way to get a conversation started. I think the right conversation to have in this respects is about C-19 and the fact that they had such a low death count. I would skip the diabetes, cancer, or autism claim that's being made because I don't know how that could be substantiated if they have that monitored every single child up there, you know. Nor should it be scrutinized to the degree that they have to offer that much proof. The only thing they got to stand on is that we're not categorically sick as a people, that we are not part of the conversation that's taking place with the quote-unquote outside citizens of the United States, this corporate fiction called the U.S. We're going to get to that too, right? For anybody that's still in doubt, you know, we're going to get you something written in their handwork, something written in their own black and white. And you could go argue with them, right? You could go argue with them, whoever them is. We talking about the government, right? Or the corporation or whatever. You could go argue with them. But you live in a corporation and you are legacy consumers. You come from families of consumers, and they're attempting to turn your family and your legacy into a legacy of consumers. So you don't have the same relationship with your government that they have with theirs. Their government is an intergovernment. Their government is God, matter of fact. Whatever image they have, whatever image of God they have convinced themselves that is godly. Right? Even if they're operating off of a fiction, even if they got a white Jesus, right? That shit works for them. Look how they are utilizing it to do for self, to be self-governed, to be a self-autonomous society in the midst of the corporate fiction called the U.S. They still exist in the midst of it. That was the same thing that was supposed to be done for indigenous people, right, who were allowed to be sovereign amongst these United States, a country within a country. Yes, such a thing exists. But the real story with them is their negative death rate dealing with C-19, right? Their people were negatively impacted by C-19. Not because they didn't get the jab. They were not getting sick to begin with because they don't have the particulates in their body that come from the food, right? They don't have the exposure to the 5G radiation. They don't have the fluoride in the tap. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the deterioration on their cells by way of the GMO intake. They have not been mutated from inside out and radiated from outside in and inside out to even be susceptible to whatever the triggers are that was sent out to create what is considered or being called a quote-unquote pandemic, right? They're not receiving the signals that have been broadcasted to tell the cell when to go into this particular state of crisis that they don't share that experience. So they were able to sidestep the experiment altogether, and it just gives you a snapshot clear. It should be crystal clear snapshot example, because these people also come from an inbred population, so they are not necessarily the face of health. But it matters not. They were smart enough to know not to participate in the social experiment. To me, that intelligence supersedes any and every other deficiency that they may have genetically as a people that are inbred. You know what I'm saying? They were smart enough to know when to say no. And that's really the only smarts that you need to have right now. And that's what's debilitating us, that no matter how bad you have been treated, your maltreatment, the disdain for your existence, the dismissal of your contribution to history, to society, the bemoaning of your character, the besearching of your image, your brand, all of that being said, all of those things being done, you still ain't have enough. You still going back for more. You still ain't put a foot down. You still haven't drawn a line in the sand and said, you know what? I'm good on all this goofy shit. I'm gonna go and do me. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna retain my worth, my self-worth. I'm gonna share it amongst people who value it, and we're gonna scale it up exponentially. You know what I'm saying? And the best way to show you what it's really hitting for is to show you what it's hitting for, and not to talk you to death, because the more that I talk, the less I seem to be convinced myself. Until I actually do something, I don't have nothing to show. And that's not awfully grown of me. You know what I'm saying? Because words are world. So where's your world at, black man? Where's your world at? You know what I'm saying? Even for the sisters that are so insistent and independent, where's the world to reflect that? And don't show me the Barbie verse. That's not gonna cut it. Because there's nothing saying that you can't do it, but there's a lot of evidence to show that you can't do it alone. Right? So what we're seeing in terms of communities that have been insulated, you know what I'm saying, by the devilishment of this society, are they're actually communities. And a community, in my sense, in a traditional sense, still consists of a man and a woman, so you could bring about children, and that's where the joy comes from. That's where the wealth comes from. That's where the internal health comes from. It's a stress reliever. Knowing that you have given birth to your progeny, you know, healthy children, and this is what you're working for. It sets goals. It gives intention. You know what I'm saying? You live longer. You live longer once you have an outlook. You live longer with optimism. You live longer when you're stress-free. You live longer when you figure some things out. You live longer when your business is just your business and that's the only business that you're tending to. You live longer when you don't have to engage everybody else's problems and scenarios and probabilities. You live longer when you're not being entertained by a fear campaign every single day. You live longer when you just got to focus on your family and your farm, your livestock. Right? Things that are in your immediate control, things that benefit you, things that you're going to get an ROI from, a return on your investment. What are you investing? Your time and your attention. Your time, your attention, and your intention. What's your intention? For my people to progress, for my children to flourish, for my legacy to continue. You know what I'm saying? To get back to the promised land. And I ain't talking about, you know, taking an exit in Fayetteville and going to Rick Ross's property, even though that's a nice property. Not to knock the homie. I'm talking about the real promised land. Whatever you have been convinced of based on your exposure to fiction, whether you have been indoctrinated to believe that you were promised the Holy Land or not, nigga, are you acting like that's where you're moving towards? Like, is that consistent with, you know what I'm saying, the mobility factor, not only of us as a people, but you as an individual? Shout out to my homie Soul Society, NC. We drinking on that live alkaline water. You know what I'm saying? And they got 100 acres, right? So what? How many more months, weeks, years, days are we going to make excuses for ourselves? Every time we put something up about self-sustainability, people come back and they talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nigga, that happened in the 1920s. And if you have not learned from the lesson about how to level up once you catch a F, if you can't build with L's, nigga, like this is Tetris, then you failed the game altogether. Why the fuck are you signing up to come back here? You know what I'm saying? Because it's about going up. You build up, you don't build down. So something gets knocked down, you rebuild it, and you learn from that lesson. You know what I'm saying? And you double down on that lesson. And you reinforce that lesson. And that lesson becomes the shit that you birth children for, to learn that lesson. You send children to military school to come back. They have mastered that lesson, right? If the issue that is making you a faulty people in the society is security, then you invest in security. Then you go and learn security from the best. You don't continue to cower and crawl in a hole and point to some shit from 100+ years ago and talk about this what they do every time that we build something. Nigga, you have not exhausted all of your means. Did you do it 1,000 times and you ain't do it yet? You ain't do it yet. If you don't got 1,000 examples to show me, then you have not attempted every option possible. Lord is my wit. If I check out of this motherfucker tomorrow, I ain't say today, I said tomorrow. Please share this live and make sure that I don't go down in a category of people who never said what needed to be said the way that it needs to be said, right? We have to excommunicate ourselves from all of the excuses that we make not to do for self. You know what I'm saying? This is our last option. Is really our only option, right? But the beauty is that there's options. So what are you scared of, right? Do you really love yourself and your people the way that you say that you do? Or is fear gripping you to that degree where you really do not trust yourself to step out and at least quote unquote try? I don't like using that word, attempt. So let's look at this.
Is a family compound. It's when you buy your own plot of land and build a small neighborhood of homes for you, your parents, your brothers, your kids, and your grandkids to help each other out. And my company helps you make this a reality. Let me explain. It's the 1950s, and up to this point, family compounds were the standard throughout human history. But once World War II ended, veterans started using government loans to buy into suburban developments that split the family compound apart. This shift from compound family living to nuclear family living resulted in a weakened family unit. Increases in depression, isolation, divorces, fatherlessness, abortions, all of these things stem from the shift away from compound living, the way of life God intended. So that's why we're making family compounds great again. At Axis Centralized Real Estate, we offer done-for-you 10-acre off-grid homesteads, with each homestead coming with everything you need to move your family off the grid once and for all without giving up modern amenities. This includes 10 or more acres of land, custom homes, off-grid utilities, farming infrastructure, and most importantly, the option to have as many homes as you want to form your own family compound. So, if you've always talked about buying 10 or more acres of land for you and your family and starting your own compound, please go to the link in our bio to design your own ranch and receive a free cost estimate, because this is a family compound. It's when you buy your own plot of land and build a small neighborhood of homes for you, your parents, your brothers, your kids, and your grandkids to help each other out.
Right? Shout out to the Acre Boys. So now I'm going to show you all of these demonstrations, right? Just in case somebody's looking and listening that actually wants to do something, right? I'm going to remove all of the excuses away from you so you can step to your BI, right? And be the superhero of your family. So the Acre Boys, all of these people are accessible right here online. You don't even have to go out of the app to make your dreams a reality. Okay? So Acre Boys right here, 8 acres, 32 racks. I think this is in Arkansas or something like that, right? Mississippi, this is in Brandon, Mississippi. All right? Then we're going to be super picky about where we don't want to be versus where we want to be. We'll be intentional about where you want to be then. And it will manifest itself. I'm just using these as examples and samples. This ain't got to be the end all be all, right? But I just want to show you that this is accessible. You can do this. You can get the acreage for almost next to nothing, right? This is 38 acres in Hawthorne, New York. That was sold for $5,500. Hold on. $5,500 for 38 acres in upstate New York. Upstate New York is beautiful. Beautiful, right? Upstate New York is just smack dead beautiful. You know, New York State legalized. You know, New York State went legal. I think it's medicinal or something. There's ways that you can leverage the land. All different type of ways that you can leverage the land. If you in New York, you know what I'm saying? Find out how far Hawthorne, New York is. If you build a family compound and y'all go to that shit, like how the Kennedys used to go to Kennebunkport, Maine and all of that stupidness, like, or how your folks might even, or how the rich motherfuckers go to the Hamptons for the weekends, right? You could go to your family compound and get things adjusted. So when it is time for you to slide up in there and move, you know what I'm saying? You could do that. So this went down from 7 racks to 5,500. Okay, this is in Nevada, Mineral County. Mineral County, so you can even buy land that's rich in minerals and come up. Feel me? You could buy land that's rich in mineral, that's mineral rich. Soil that's mineral dense. Feel me? And there's all sorts of farming techniques where you can finesse something right in the desert. You can use our composting techniques. You can use greenhouses. You can find other ways or build out other things that are in the desert that are, that coincide with that environment. Yeah, alien playgrounds, right? Sure. Right? You're going to let the aliens have all the fun, though? $2,700. This is a property, right? This is a property in Arkansas. Now, let me tell you something about Arkansas. Arkansas has some of the most ilmatic and ancient quartz deposits in the world. It's between Arkansas and Brazil, right? Arkansas sits on some of the illest quartz ever. So there's wild affordable property in Arkansas, but you can create a whole side career, a whole side hustle, a whole side trade just by getting you a spot in Arkansas, but go and do the mining. Go and get the quartz. Go and get the rose quartz. They got ilmatic minerals and crystals and things of that nature up in Arkansas. You can create and it's not so much that it's untampered with. They got diamonds in Arkansas. Motherfuckers go diamond mining in Arkansas and come up. Right? We don't even have our hat, let alone our finger or our foot in the race. We just still on the couch thinking about shit. We have not gotten the game at all, but we complaining about the score. We ain't even in the game, but we complaining about the score. We ain't throw our shoulder out doing this shit to be complaining about it. You ain't do what your grandfathers or your great-grandfathers would have done. They would have tried at least 10,000 times before they called it quits. They would throw their shoulder out. If they would strangle an angle, if they found a pebble, my nigga, they would not have stopped digging until they was old and gray. I'll be out here in the country of Georgia, not Atlanta, in the country where the hillbillies is at, and our elders, our melanated brothers, they're still farming, they're still, mechanics. They like 70 plus, 80 some places that you find them. I'm talking about gray, and they still working. They still throwing their shoulder out. You know what I'm saying? They still throwing their shoulder out. You could look at them. He be like, he been doing this shit since he was 3. And excuses for themselves. They do that shit somewhat with a grace to it, right? Because like they're men. Like, what else do you do but work? Feel me? What do men do outside of that? All right. Here, it's another article. Because you could work smarter and not harder, so everything is not labor intensive. These people right here are utilizing their brains and their minds, utilizing their minds to master what's called technical analysis, and now they play in the market. The Bitcoin family, right? They use lunar cycles in order to gauge the market. The very first person amongst our community that we heard come forth with this information was Chicago blockchain bully, showing and proving, right, his methodology of how to make observations of lunar cycles to tell right? The ebbs and the flows of in particular the Bitcoin market. And he's been spot on. They got a whole article written about them, right? They're using a special algorithm to track moon cycles, and it helps them gain 50% since the bear market bottom. Feel me? So we got geniuses amongst us. We got resources amongst us. We got the level ups, right? You got the cheat codes amongst you. They're being underutilized and underused. Where people complaining about a game that we're not even suited up to play in yet. We're complaining from the sideline. We ain't even on the sidelines. We still in the crib watching this shit on TV. You one of them niggas that's in the living room with the jersey on and your boxes talking about my team. Like you the fucking coach or the star player. You that nigga. That's who black people have become. You're not even in the fucking game. You're not even at the stadium, let alone on the sidelines or let alone on the goddamn field, let alone or in the bleachers. You're in the crib watching the simulcast of this shit in your boxers on the couch pointing fingers with a bowl of popcorn and barbecue wings talking to the TV like you really in the game. You don't even got a bet at FanDuel, matter of fact, my nigga. Like, you don't even got skin in the game in terms of a bet laid on the line. You're part of a fantasy pool at your barbershop. At your barbershop. But you want shit to change and move because you said that you made an investment. You want the team to respect you for your investment. And they're players. You're not even speaking to the team coach or the owner. You want the team to respect you for your investment. And the team is like, I'm on the field playing the game, my nigga, for the owner. Hey, you're not even a season holder, nigga. Like, you approach me at my car or in Trader Joe's or Whole Foods and shit, and you want me to respect you because you won $20 on FanDuel when you finally did decide to make a bet. Or, you know what I'm saying, a free haircut at your barbershop fantasy football league. And you think that you playing. You think that you in the game. You a stepper, huh? So we have not even attempted to exhaust our energy towards trying this shit that the fucking people amongst us who I consider these are the heralds, these are the people, they call them harbingers, right? They're sent from the universe to herald a fucking change, my nigga. And they come with the cheat code. And before you know it, you scratching your head like, oh, these people were amongst us. They were giving this information out for affordable prices. Now there's fucking seminars online where they want 50 racks for this info because the value of it was finally realized once mainstream media puts an article out on the very people in your community who you've been fucking ignoring all along. Yeah, you want the team captain of a Super Bowl team to sign your bootleg jersey or your bootleg T-shirt celebrating the championship. The T-shirt ain't even real. Ain't even your feelings. When a nigga be like, nah, son, I'm cool on that. Damn, son, what you think you better than me? Yeah, nigga. Yeah, actually, when it comes to the game, yeah, I put skin in it. I'm playing the game. I'm playing to win. I'm sacrificing. I'm putting it all on the line. You outside of the stadium selling or buying the bootleg merchandise that goes along with my motherfucking my victory lap, nigga.
At a matter of death, don't put that slap on your chest. Don't get mad and possessed. Things get bad when you stress. Set and rattle the flesh.
Join us
We'll get back to
every Sunday, 4:44 p.m. Eastern, only on Patreon, as we welcome Chicago Crypto Block Bully technical analysis.
Alright everyone, Cowboy Trade Sir, welcome back to the channel for another update on Bitcoin. So,
Understanding technical analysis can mean the difference between buying here and buying here. And that's why I've decided to create price action, the movement of an asset or security's price over time plotted on a chart. All-time high, ATH, the highest an asset has ever been in price. Support, a point in the market where the price is less likely to drop below due to previous demand or price action. Resistance, a point in the market where
You will learn behavioral economics. You will study historical market data. You will be able to identify trading opportunities. You will be able to evaluate any investment and many, many more. Please join us on Red Pillar's Patreon. Peace. Join us every Sunday, 4:44 p.m. Eastern, only on Patreon, as we welcome Chicago Crypto Block Bully.
Shout out to Red and Chicago Crypto. They have a 4-week course that they have already been doing over on Red Pill's Patreon. You could go to his page and get the link in the bio, go directly to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm really overstressing the fact that our brother Chicago Crypto teaches an invaluable technique, a skill set, a methodology on how to properly gauge technical analysis so you can be a day trader. You can have something to fall back on, you know what I'm saying? But I really want you to see it as something that you can accelerate with, not just fall back on, but go forward with, go, run it all the way up, right? Because the more that you master the skill set means the more that you can get to the bag, you know what I'm saying? In your time and in your leisure, however you so please, you feel me? But not having the knowledge of the technical analysis, not having the gnosis locked in or the methodology, then you'll always be, relying on somebody else's skill set. You're a slave to the algorithm. You feel me? So to free yourself up, these are liberation, these are tools of liberation. You know what I'm saying? Our people are, we are in critical paralysis by our lack of technical analysis and our financial illiteracy. The fact that we're not financially solvent in terms of our education of finances, you know what I'm saying, renders us inoperable if we're on a global stage competing as a people. You know what I'm saying? How can we move forward if we don't understand economics, if we don't understand finances, if we don't understand investment? You feel me? How can we properly invest in one another or invest in our future if we don't understand the principles of investment? And studying the market, the cosmos governs the affairs of men. And the affairs of men is what moves markets. So watching and observing markets and understanding technical analysis, you're really observing the relationship between the cosmos and man and coming out with receipts and proof of it to show tangible evidence the way that it shows up in the fluctuation of their purchases or how they retract. You know what I'm saying? Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter and Saturn. So bull and bear markets, all of these things, like, this is all cosmological, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day. And you're really learning, like how the large language models are teaching artificial intelligence. You're learning large data sets as well by watching fluctuations in markets. You're really observing large data sets of people's, you know what I'm saying, their ways, how they ebb and flow. So I want to segue into the next article. Again, this is coming off of a conversation that we've been having on these networks. It was a private conversation I was having in a meeting on Saturday that really connects with this, because I was with some powerhouse individuals and they were speaking to me about their acts. Both of them managed separate acts, and the acts that they managed were international artists, Afrobeat artists. And they were telling me about the future of music, and I was listening and I was adding my 2 cents. And I was sharing my story, and my story was that on this tour that we just went on, we went through 3 key regional markets, the Northeast market, we went to the Midwest market, and we went to the Southern market, right? Deep South market, for that matter. And what I noticed in common to all of the markets that we touched is that when we went out at night and we hit the town, because I love observing the cities that I'm in, I want to know the daytime is one energy, the nightlife is a whole nother story. So you kind of gauge a city by understanding its nightlife. You know what I'm saying? Because the freaks come out at night. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. You know, the shit that you need to know about a city, you're gonna find out about it at night amongst the freaks. Right? So each one of these markets have their own regional heroes when it comes to music. They were all jamming out to their regional heroes. Like in the southern market, in the Deep South market, I probably heard them play the whole Finesse 2-Time album in the club. You know what I'm saying? You hear Dolph over there. You don't really hear Dolph on the East Coast. In the Midwest markets, you know what I'm saying, we was hearing drill maybe a little bit here. You know what I'm saying? But they also got their regional heroes. You hear Crucial Conflict. You don't hear that shit nowhere else. You know what I'm saying? When we was in New Orleans, you hear Bounce. You feel me? You don't hear that in other markets to that degree, right? Not with them. They playing the B-sides. They playing shit that you don't know, but everybody in the club know every word of the song. What was consistent in every regional market that I went in, though, is that when they blended the transition, when they transitioned the music from regional into something else to change the vibe and the mood of the club, all of the DJs used Afro beats as a transition. And everywhere that I went, I saw the same response to Afrobeat when they transitioned out of their regional music. And all of them were seamless, and even, I would dare say, the energy went up when they transitioned into Afrobeat. And the reason why I make these observations and it's seamless is that, with the exception maybe of the Northeastern market, New York hip-hop, right? But even New York hip-hop, because New York hip-hop now is tonal and guttural because of drill music, right? Like they're using those tonalities. You feel me? It's a little bit more guttural. Definitely in the regional, definitely in the mid-western markets, because the drill is also there. So we might be saying, oh, they mumbling and things of that nature. They got their own language. They got their own tonality to their language. Everything is not necessarily audible because they're not attempting to speak the Queen's English. You feel me? They're more so getting into guttural, tonal expressions. You know, all that stuff. It's primal. It's ancestral. You know what I'm saying? And definitely when we got into the Deep South and the call and response and, you know what I'm saying, things of that nature, it was very guttural. It was very tonal in terms of the inflections and things of that nature, the way that they get into their music. So Afro beats is very tonal too. I don't know half of what's being said, but I fucks with it. I like it. You know what I'm saying? There's something that's familiar to my DNA that it can't be ignored. And I don't even need to know what's being said because it's speaking to my soul. Right? Like you just find yourself, you just get into it. Like you don't even think twice about it. And we all try to drunk recite the lyrics and things of that nature. And whether we get the shit right or not, we're not going to be judged by it. You can have fun being wrong when it comes to Afro beats. Right? You can have fun being wrong. The wronger the better. Matter of fact, the wronger the funnier. Like, you don't even want the nigga to be right. Like, come on, son. Yeah, make this shit sound crazy. So we were already saying, based on our observation, that Afro beats is a global music, right? It's a different vibration. It's a different frequency. You feel me? And the fact that hip hop did not chart #1 this year, in this 50th year, speaks to the audit that needs to happen in hip hop. Hip hop needs to be audited. This is the year that we need to make a reflection and look back and say, where have we come from with this vehicle that we have been entrusted with? It's like your grandfather, you know what I'm saying? You a teenager, you like 16, you the age and shit it is when it's time to go to prom. You know what I'm saying? And your grandfather, you know, he's about to take a summer vacation and shit and go to where does the upper crust grandfather? This nigga's going to Martha's Vineyard, right? He's going to Martha's Vineyards to hang out with the Howard alumni and shit. You know what I'm saying? Granddaddy got bread though and shit. He was a obstetricianist or something like that. This nigga got an antique Bentley. He got an antique Bentley. It's ivory. You know what I'm saying? And the seats are mahogany or some shit like that, right? No, it's mahogany wood on a panel. The seats is ebony, but the outside is ivory, and the shit is a vintage Bentley. A vintage Rolls Royce. Right? Because I in my mind, I seen the little lady coming up on the front of it. It's a vintage Rolls Royce. And Grandpa gave you the keys. Because he needs you to move this shit just in case you want to take the bucket that's parked in front of it and take it to town. So he gave you the shit not so you could stunt. He gave you the shit so you could move it out the way so you could take the hoopty with you when you need to go into town. But here you go. Right? Want to ride that shit around everywhere and look cute in it. But you ain't even know that the shit's supposed to get premium gas and not unleaded. So here you go. You stunting but fucking the tank up at the same time. That's my analogy for hip hop, nigga. That's my analogy for hip hop. It's something that was handed to us by our esteemed elders, elder statesmen. In this case, in my life, it would be the last poets, right? Because whatever material riches are accessible to us on the planet as people, they should have been endowed with it for the contributions that they made to humanity by giving us encouragement, by giving us support, by giving us, you know, the audio backdrop that we can make sense of this crazy ass society that we live in, for giving us clarity, for showing us courage, for fusing primal sounds, right? The live instrumentation with a modern conversation and commentary, right? They were a fusion between past and present. So those to me, those are the OGs, right? We're being entrusted with the platform of black music, right? Which is a noble it's a noble station, it's a noble occupation. It's one hell of a place to occupy. You get handed the keys to the kingdom that very well could run all the way back up to the clan of angels, right? Because if there were any people who came to this planet and were able to create sound and music, they had to be our ancestors, right? And then those ancestors had to come from, you know, from afar, from their loftiest place. They had to be part of the clan of angels if there is a heaven, and they were there. Then they were the ones responsible. You know, our nanas in the choir singing the gospel, yeah, they come from wherever the motherfucking higher plane of existence is, where music is something that creates cosmos and shit like that, right? Shit like that. And I know you've been exposed to it. I know you've been in church or around church where you heard the melanated women singing guttural, once again, guttural music, pulling from their guts. Okay? Pulling from their guts. Pulling that guttural music up. And there was something inside of you that just resonated and reverberated and shook up like, God damn, like, she's giving life to like the fibers of my being. You know what I'm saying? Like the cosmic juices are giving me a inside car wash in on a cellular level. I'm getting a car wash on a cellular level. Yeah, that's what they be doing with them beautiful sounds that they emit. Especially when they're singing in unison and they're singing together and they're an outfit and they're a unit. You know what I'm saying? It's the most beautiful music. I witnessed this the other night. We were having a session. Shout out to the sister America Sutton. Yo, we have amongst us, you know. I'm a student of history and I read a lot and delve into who our greats are and shit. But we got greats that are amongst us that are alive, that possess the same potentiality. And the beautiful thing about it, especially as community, is that these are young people, some of which are just getting started. Imagine if you met Quincy Jones when he just got in the game, and you know that he had a 50-year legacy of music, and within that 50-year span of legacy, there were monumental moments, classical moments that will outlive time forever, such as Thriller. You know what I'm saying? These are some of them people that are around right now. These people are early in their journey and they're going to make contributions that outlive any of us, that are going to be the pinnacle points and moments of music when the culture is shifted. Like, I'm bearing witness to individuals like that are around us. And one of those are America Sutton, you know, and she's been able to pull together a consortium of musicians to form a band that's like Sly and the Family Stone. You know what I'm saying? Like, the last time I seen some shit like that was Sly and the Family Stone, you know. And we were making a song the other night, and she has a collection of these singers, and they sound like angels. When they sing together in unison, they sound angelic. You know, they're opening portals, they're shifting dead weight and energy. You know what I'm saying? They're making the world a better place just with their tonality. You feel me? Just by not being Anglophonic. You feel me? Where we're pulling things from. You know, it's a beautiful fusion of music that's taking place right now with our people who are tapping into their primal urges and their essence. You know what I'm saying? And your primal urge might be to scream on a track. Your primal urge might be to grunt on a track. Your primal urge might be to, ugh. You know what I'm saying? Your primal urge might be to say, I'm going to say no mama makusa. I'm going to say no mama makusa. I'm going to say no mama. Yeah, it's not meant to be interpreted in English, nigga. We not doing English right now. We doing a fusion of it. We doing Finglish. We not doing English right now. You know, we're giving our souls and our spirit a space to be heard, and we're pulling up, you know, those tones from the deepest crevices of our minds. You know what I'm saying? I ain't need to know it. Touch it, bring it, thing. I didn't need to know none of the English in that. Like, there's certain things that we have been contributing as a people that it goes best uninterpreted. You know what I'm saying? Because it throws us back to a time where, you know, we should be allowed to be ourselves. And I think that music is shifting back to that place. You know, it's going to allow us to be ourselves, and the vibration, it's not that it has to change, it's already changed, and that's not what we've caught up with. We ain't get the memo that the game already changed, that women don't want to be called bitches globally. Like, that we're stuck in our fishbowl, and we think that Booty Hole Brown it has a global audience, and it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? We're in our own way thinking that this shit is cute, and then thinking it has a global reach or an appeal, or thinking that this shit won't go stale by next year, that this This is not what's going to be on the radio. This is not what your children are going to grow up with. And if you think this is what your children are going to grow up with, then shame on you as a parent for feeling that that's acceptable, that your child should be exposed for the rest of their lives to my coochie holder, my coochie pink and my booty holders brown. That, nothing's going to come out of that. Nothing that we can use, you know what I'm saying, to rebuild that which has been denuded and destroyed. You feel me? So, let me see. Do I have any clips of some of these angelic beings giving us some of their sound frequencies? Shout out to Ampu. Shout out to Source Guard. Shout out to my brother Red. I become more of a fan of his every time we're in the studio. I'm really a fan of these artists, you know what I'm saying? I'm really a fan of these artists and their ability to create, you feel me? On a drop of a dime. It's the dopest shit. And we can turn the tide on the music. It's within us. It's within us to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's already is being done, But the people got to make their mind up, because it's all about y'all at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? You're the ones that are giving it audience. The shit that you like, the shit that you don't like. Either or. You know what I mean? So, why don't our people support the things that they say that they do like, the shit that they say that we do need, the things that, are closest to the vibration and the frequency that they say that they on? Why don't they support the music that's consistent with that? You know what I'm saying? If it's whack, say it's whack. But if it's something that you fuck with, then fuck with it. You know what I mean? They be having people that do this type of music confused because they like, there's no audience for it. But I'm like, look at this shit globally. Right? Afrobeats is speaking about uplifting women. They're speaking about them in the most positive way. They're still using, even if we don't understand the language, nigga, you know that it's an analogy, right? They ain't saying, shit, I want to insert my pole in your birthing hole. They not, you know what I'm saying? Or your bonus hole. I want to throw this pole in your bonus hole. You feel me? Get on your belly so it could be soul to soul. Like they ain't saying that. You know what I'm saying? They're still using metaphors and shit. They're still using metaphors in their music to talk about the yoni and the pony. They still using metaphors when they talk about the pony and the yoni. They're not being outward and overt. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick, bitch. I put my thumb in the butt. Alright. And Future, no, he don't even gotta sing that part in the concert. He could be like, yeah, and I'm gonna put my thumb in the butt, and all the women gonna sing it. He already know that. I know that. I know that for a fact. So what are we even talking about? That's how y'all want it? It took Future to let the rest of us know that y'all want a thumb. That's his contribution to humanity. And he will be rewarded for it. Right? Because was he lying? Do you niggas not like Perkies and Mollies? You do. He just gave you theme music for it. But is he to blame for it? The proliferation, he made this shit a bop. But he's not to blame. He didn't start it. right? We are an addictive culture. You know what I'm saying? We are an addictive people, addictive culture.
At a matter of death, don't put that slap on your chest. Don't get mad and possessed. Things get bad when you stress. Set and rattle the flesh. Get a grab at your breath. Get a stab at the test. Till you pass and impress. Oh.
We had a session last night. Was it last night? No, it was the night before. It was the night before. We had a dope session. You know, the sister sets the tone. She sets the mood. You feel me? She brings them angels up in there. And, you know, us, the brothers and the sisters with the bars, you know what I'm saying? They get to do what they do. You know what I'm saying? Under an amazing situation with some amazing artists. I don't even want to call them background artists because the vocals live at the forefront. But I'm just saying that consistently, you know, we want to be doing something that represents something new, something, you know, an answer to whatever the problem, whatever our perceived problem is as a people. You know, we want to be part of the solution. Look, so with that being said, this retreat is coming up. You feel me? This retreat is coming up, Labor Day weekend, for the family that wants to tap into the mystical mountain of Mount Shasta and all of it has to offer. So we're doing Shasta and Oregon runs, right? Oregon is where mushrooms naturally grow. We can do some light foraging, right? We don't gotta, what's understood don't need to be explained. This is not really the place to discuss that. But there's going to be healing and healing modalities available, right? There's going to be, you know, this is going to be our 10th one up in Mount Shasta, so you'll be guided by responsible staff, and a lot of activities going to be laid out and situated for the family, all right? And that's Labor Day weekend. And immediately following that, we have this coming. And you guys are the first to see this announcement, right? So at the end of September, we're going to be going to Sedona. And not only are you going to have access to the vortex points and all of the other mysteries of Sedona, but you also can engage in this particular retreat and receive Reiki certification. I'm going to be going there with some Reiki masters. Once again, this is something, they're more so familiar with this terrain. I'm going with people who have already mastered the terrain, who know the ins and the outs of this particular environment. You know what I'm saying? So responsibly, I got with some professionals to give you a professional experience. All right? But this is also available. The link is in my bio if you want to tap into the Sedona retreat. Okay? So many people responded on the post and said that this is what they wanted for both instances. And we made it available. We furnished it and made it available. Take advantage of it. Be a man or a woman of your word and step to the plate. It's affordable. We're going to work with whoever needs to be worked with. You know what I'm saying? I just ask you once again just to step up and, you know, stop false flagging. Stop saying that you want something, then something is presented, and then you get scared. You feel me? Don't do that. Let's not do that. Everything else, you know, life is experiential. You got to get to these places. You have to tap in and see what it's all about. At our Shasta retreat, we're going to be dealing with some of the most sacred waters on the planet, where we're going to be at, the mineral springs that we're going to be staying next to, right? The retreat is the mineral springs and everything run through the retreat area that we'll be at. These are the waters that Dr. Emoto tested when he wrote the book on water. If you're familiar with his book on water, right? The waters that he tested were these waters out of Mount Shasta. These are healing waters, super duper high vibrational healing waters, right? And that is going to be made available for for Mount Shasta and Sedona. You're going to get that red clay, that healing that this terrain offers by way of the mineral-rich soil, right? That red clay indicates that there's copper, there's iron, there's gold in this region. You feel me? But there's also going to be, like I said, Reiki certification. So what better place to learn how to utilize subtle energy forces but in one of the vortex centers of the planet? You understand what I'm saying? And for those that know about the planetary chakra system, Mount Shasta is considered the root of the planetary chakra system. But what you'll notice is that when you go to Mount Shasta, everything that you see is going to be purple all around town. The town pays homage to the Ascended Master. What's the guy's name? The name was right there. It just disappeared like a thought bubble. Saint Germain, right? So the Saint Germain order is very thick up there, and you see purple everywhere that you go. You really don't see any red to indicate that Mount Shasta is the planetary root system, or is the root chakra of the planetary grid system. You really don't see no evidence. You see more evidence that suggests that it is the crown chakra of the planetary grid system. I have not been any place in this country more mystical and magical than Mount Shasta, other than Sedona. You feel me? Other than Sedona. So we're going to do both of them this year, back to back. You feel me? And we're not going to make any excuses for ourselves. This is what we know that we need. We know what we want, right? So let's get it done. Feel me? Both of these links is in the bio. The Sedona, and you got Mount Shasta. Okay? You got Sedona and you got Shasta. So I don't know what else. I don't know what else to tell you. But these are both gonna go up. They're both, you know what I'm saying? I'm not just excited for the people who are going to engage in this particular offering. I'm excited for the land as well that we'll be engaging and interfacing with. Both of these places I had mystical experiences. Look, and if you're not into my mystical experience, goddammit, then put the Bible down. Because why would you believe Paul and his mystical experience in the Bible where he said he encountered an apparition, which is a spirit that turned him from Saul to Paul, nigga? So I had a mystical experience too when I went to Mount Shasta in 2015, and the mountain spoke to me, right? And the mountain said, and even not just the mountain told me this shit, and the people that live there told me it afterwards. But the mountain was like, you got to bring more of your people up here, in particular the women, right? They're going through too much pain and suffering. This is a place where they can alchemize that pain. You know what I'm saying? The mountain is a healing mountain. The waters are healing waters. That's the mountain that they found. This is the region where they found the gold at. Weed, California, Eureka, California, are all in Mount Shasta County. Or you could Google it. This is where the gold rush started on the West Coast. The gold rush started over here in North Georgia, but over there started on the West Coast in Shasta area. This is where the Green Triangle, the Golden Triangle, all of that starts. The weed and stuff like that. All of this is based on the soil, the minerals, the land. When you go right over the bridge into Oregon, they call that God's country. It's so beautiful. You know what I'm saying? these regions want more of our people to tap into these regions. They want more of our people with their souls on the earth, grounding in, breathing, crying on the land if you need to, bleeding on the land if need to. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they told me in Sedona. They was like, we need women to bleed on the land. Make a reconnection with the physical inhabitants of this part of this country and the spirit of the land. It's called Wakanda, technically, right? That is awake and waking, and is tired of the occupants. It's tired of the fleas. This dog wants to shake the fleas off that it has on his back, because the people who have been there have been abusing these energy vortex centers for far too long. And they want to make a shift. The land wants to make a shift. Even the people want to make the shift to live there. They're like, we've been doing this for too long. Where are y'all people at? Why are y'all not tapped into this? It's like we've taken all that we can take. It's like it's your turn to come in here and be bathed in this energy and let the land remember who you are. Y'all are the ones that can make this magic happen. You know what I'm saying? The Tamahu and the colonizers can't. They know that at this point. They're not even interested in that. You feel me? They turned a sacred land to a tourist attraction. You feel me? The people who live outside of that region, the indigenous, quote unquote, native people who make all of the stuff that's being sold inside of Sedona, cannot even afford to live in Sedona. And Sedona is not somewhere where people were even supposed to live. It's sacred land. You go there initially for ceremony. So this is not even some place where people are supposed to occupy and domicile to that degree. They're out of control. You feel me? And the land wants more balance. But the land wants more of its children to come back and to sing and to dance and to play. And you know what I'm saying? It wants a symbiotic relationship with its children once again. You know? So the things that need to be given to us and shown to us and reminded, you know, all of these things can take place. You feel me? But if you're not visiting your folks, if you just got your folks in a nursing home and you letting them wither away, they're going to grow bitter with you at some point. You could even put them in a home. As long as you go and see them, they're going to be appreciative. And they got mad jewels and gems for you. I'm using this analogy to compare to how we abandon our grands, is how we abandon our lands. And we look from afar. We got all of these things to say, but we see it rewarding so many other people. So the people who work at the home with your folks who you've abandoned, they get all the gems. The lady who got to change her grandmother and shit, she's being told all of the indispensable wisdom that should really be yours. And she might even write her in the will and leave her an inheritance, because that's the only face that she gets to see while you niggas ain't around. And that's the same thing happening with the land as well, the treasures of this land, the spirit of this land. Sometimes it's coughing up gems to people who just are there to massage it, who are there paying homage to it, who are there caring for it, you know what I'm saying, who are there paying company to it. But those are not the true inheritors of the estate. And the estate is vast. And there's so much, you know what I'm saying, that these lands have to offer. So much treasure that awaits us in nature if we come back to our natural self. Because city dwelling is not natural. We're not a cosmopolitan people who are locked into a city living. The concept of a city is artificial to begin with. There's no cities in nature. That's not a natural occurrence. Civilization is the fall of humanity. When you felt that you needed to be civilized and no longer primal and, for lack of a better word, savage. Because that's what they'll call you if they run into you in the jungle. But as Dr. Sabi would say, we ain't have hospitals in the jungle. We didn't have prisons in the jungle. So who's the true savage? Who's the true savage? We're domesticated. And at this point, we are self-medicated and self-domesticated, attempting to be something that we're not. I would very well just be on the plains or in some jungle with some fucking loincloth on at this point, looking at the stars and having a communication with my ancestors. Because when I strip it all else down, like this social experiment, even the one that I have participated in, it is unrewarding to a degree that I'm not willing to change or exchange my natural self with this shit. Not with this shit. No, it's not a fair trade. Send me back into the motherfucking jungles. I mean, preferably to an island, though, that has, like, mango trees and pineapples and coconuts. I know y'all gonna say pineapples is hybrid, but we can still grow them. Apples, berries. You know what I'm saying? You bring the sheep along with you because, you bring the goats and the sheep and shit because they help you keep your thing together. And just in case you might want to, I will go fishing right off the island, right? Because my people are naturally tropical people, so there's some aspects of me that's pescatarian. I respond well when I eat fish. Pause. So, yeah, I'm willing for that. You know what I mean? If I have to be honest and once again do a self audit and make an assessment, as much of I've been a fancy cadaver all my life, right? I've been a noble savage all my life. I'd rather just be throw me back to the forest. Throw me back to the forest. You know what I'm saying? I don't need, the amenities is cute and everything, but it's not worth trading my humanity in for. I'd rather build a bamboo mansion. I'd rather live in a treehouse in the forest. Straight up. Unapologetically, too. Like, that's actually goals. So, I don't even feel no need to apologize for my preferences. I literally would rather swing from a tree at this point than fuck with traffic. That's straight up. Is it realistic? It can be. You know what I'm saying? It can be. Yeah. Like, I am myself when I'm in the mountains, in the forest, in the woods. Like, I'm really myself. I'm more of myself than anything else. I had to acclimate to a city environment. I had to acclimate to growing up in a concrete jungle and being prey and predator, shit like that. That wasn't natural. The things that I seen in the city was not natural. Wasn't natural. It was suppression of primal energy that expressed itself in other ways, and the shit ended up looking crazy and bloody and ugly as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Where do our people have a place to go and scream? Right? Shout out to my brother Kim Brispin. He used to bring these points up to me about the sexual revolution of the 60s and the fact that white children got to have their primal moment. They got to have their savage moment when they became unfeathered during the sex rebellion. They was able to let their hair down. When did black people ever get to do that? Right? And categorically, we both were being impacted by a suppressive patriarchy that was utilizing religion, right, to destroy the primal aspect of who you are. It impacted white children different because they were also being taught privilege, whereas with melanated people, you were being taught that this was the reason for your burden. So you became to hate your sexuality for a totally different reason than the colonizers' children, you know what I'm saying, were questioning their sexuality. right? But when they had the first option that they got to express themselves, look what they did with it. When did you get to do it? You only got to do it during crack cocaine, right? Where we saw this shit come out in a zombie form. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I'm like, imagine this, that the people in our neighborhood who our children grew up to admire, admonish, and replicate themselves after they was fucking crackheads for $5 and $10 nick hits. Them niggas with the jewels on, with the shiny cars, the truth about them niggas is that they was fucking boppers, right? And letting boppers suck their dick. But then they would go to a strip club later on and pay a stripper $300 to do it, but wouldn't give her $20 at a gas station. Yeah, that part. Give me a minute. I'm gonna let that settle in, right? And then them niggas was going to jail and fucking boys. Yeah, and that's just the ugly truth of it. And that's just the ugly truth of it. And those became people's heroes. Those became niggas that people modeled their lives over, and they followed them into the same soul contracts that them niggas took, right? And I asked these questions openly, and I have not got an answer to this day. But it's okay, because at least I know that means that people are thinking about it, right? We used to have something called a hustler prayer, right? Shout out to A.A. Rashid. We created a fictional being called Pimp God Gerard. And Pimp God Gerard was the entity that we made prayers and offering to when we were going to do dirt, but we wanted to make it back home safe and sound. Right? Shout out to my brother Junior. I got to bring him into this conversation one day. We used to play Farrakhan tapes on the way to do stings, right? Because me and him, that was my partner in crime. So when we would go and do our dirt, we always listened to Farrakhan leading up there, and we always did a prayer before we went and did our dirt to make it back home. And the one day that I didn't do that, it's when I got knocked. But I say all that to say that I wasn't selling drugs. I was into retail reparations. So my revolution was always being fought against the man. And I was playing cops and robbers every day against the law, right? Because that was part of my rebellion. This is how, in my mind, I was a revolutionary. Playing their game better than them, better at their game than they was, right? And I had to take shit from them to prove that they wasn't as powerful as people attempted to make them seem. But the hustler was coming through the hood, flashing ill-gotten gains that was made from turning people to look like him into zombies so he can go down Madison Avenue and get a wink from white folks. To me, that's not gangster. To me, them niggas was the sellouts. To me, they are the worst form of human beings on the planet. Because you showcasing some shit that you got from the weakest amongst our people, divesting investment in our community to put some shit into your pocket for you to go spend with white folks. I'm like, how are we going to win doing that? You destroyed an extra person to step on them to get closer to Europeans, and you will never measure up to them because that's not the criteria that they utilize to admit you to the club. You're supposed to be a property owner. But the fact that you have destroyed your environment and your community, you made it possible for the real estate investors to enact a 30-year plan of gentrification when now they can go and buy the very same property that you were standing in front of selling drugs, claiming that you were selling it so your mother can help paying the rent to the same realtors. Now they could come and buy it for 50 cents on the dollar because the very child that wanted to help mama ended up fucking mama over grandmama and everybody else in the community, so you could look like you got some motherfucking money to people who are broke as well. And then you went and made music about it, and it's a global export that has transformed the planet, right? And nothing positive necessarily has, and when I say positive, it don't equate to power, right? Let's call that shit, is it positive or negative? Do it equate to power? Then it's negative. If it equates to power by any means, my nigga, it's positive. If it equates to power by any means, it's positive. Because you can alchemize positivity, nigga. Sorry. You just can. But it was never alchemized. Niggas never turned lead to gold. They spray painted lead with gold and put the shit on their neck as a flex. That's not a flex, my nigga. You can't flex like that. And we allowed this shit, not knowing that your flex was our destruction. You flexing that you the most self-destructive nigga amongst us, and we're applauding that. And we saying, yo, that's a real one. So I don't get along with this world. I'm not from it. I need to be in the fucking woods by myself with my clan, my tribe, and my compound. Because I don't see this. I don't see the world like everybody else does, even people that are in my closest immediate circles. I'm radical in my approach to niggas and unforgiving into what they allowed themselves to participate in, to feel a level of equality to white folks that are non-deserving to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Your comparison could not have been to other melanated people, because what measure do you have to gauge by? You can't sell death in the community and come and flex next to other black people as your metric to say, I'm a man and I can stand on the same stage as you. You was doing that shit for crackers. And then when they nabbed you, they debriefed you because you was working for them to begin with, because the big homie are the feds, nigga. They're the ones that are supplying the work to begin with. You're not getting it from nobody that looks like you. They're getting it from somebody who's part of the State Department and runs fucking drugs for the CIA. And that's who you work for. So when niggas is getting knocked, they're getting debriefed. They're not snitching. They're not snitching. That was their boss to begin with. And we holding this shit up. Like this is the real, like we could get, like we going somewhere with this shit. Like we really doing something. We wasted 30 fucking years trying to look cute to one another, to people who really don't count. Cause you don't love one another. You trying to flex to look cute to one another, but we don't even have the capacity to love one another. So what was it all for to begin with? Because no love came out of it. We gave birth to a generation of children that's on demon time because it was never built from love. And there was nothing foundational. You can't build a foundation on ill-gotten gains. So I don't know nothing that's still standing that was built with drug funds from the 80s and 90s. And I asked this on my live the other night. Somebody said Rap-A-Lot Records, and I left that alone. Because if that was the truth, then Jay Prince would have been in jail by now because of the scrutiny from federal authorities as to whether ill-gotten gains or drug proceeds really funded Rap-A-Lot Records or not. At this point, my niggas, let's be for real. Or he's working for them folks. Once again, like I said, they're all working for them folks. If they ever dabbled in the game, that's the plug. At the top. Read the records. So what is still standing from the 80s or the 90s that was built with drug funds? I'll wait. Yeah. Like I said, you know, we're so blessed as a people, though, right? Our Creator loves us so much, right? I am so in debt to being in awe of my love for Creator. You feel me? I hope that never is misunderstood, right? I have a fanatical, radical love for the concept of creation and the Creator. I do not like mitigating those concepts with names and titles, though. You know what I'm saying? So I could dabble in Christianity because I'm a pope. I could go to Islam and I'm going to read something and deal with that from a perspective of what would the Mahdi do? Right? I could go amongst the Buddhas and appreciate Buddha. You feel me? I could dabble in Judaism and research Kabbalah and deal with their concept of quote unquote Jehovah as a 26 as a tetragrammaton, a four-letter name God who equals the number 26. I could appreciate that aspect of the number 26 existing between a square and a cube, right? Because 5 times 5 equals 25, okay? And 3 times 3 equals 27. No, is it? 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 cubed, 5 squared. 26 exists between 25 and 27. It's a placeholder for what? It's a placeholder for physicality, right? They're talking about the material world, geometry, hence the fact that the G sits in the center of the Masonic compass and square. They're speaking about geometry, they're speaking about shapes. And when you talk about shapes, you're talking about sound. When you talk about sound, you're talking about color. You're talking about color, you're talking about vibration. And that's all this shit breaks down to. So I love the Creator, you know what I'm saying? Because the Creator is always creating new opportunities. So even with all of the things that we have may have done in life with our lives, we are still here. For those of us that are still here, for those of us that are operating on 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7, and 8 chances at life. You know what I'm saying? I'm on my 44th life. Feel me? I'm on borrowed time. You know? So there's still wind in our chest. Then there's still an opportunity to dust yourself off and try again and get it right. You know what I mean? And that's all I'm saying is that these opportunities are still afforded to us. 32, that's about the amount for a bird. You know what I'm saying? Rather than a bird, you could get 8 acres. Nigga, you know how vast 8 acres is? And if you cannot figure out how to turn 8 acres, right, into at least $64,000 in profit, and I would say you want to triple your investment and not double it, to really, you know, walk away with a smile on your face. If you can't figure out how to turn 32 into 120, my nigga, like that's on you. This is more about you than it is about anybody else. It's about the colonizer, the oppressor, your ancestors, your parents. This is about you. And it's time to be real with ourselves. You feel me? Like, either you got it or you don't. And not all of us got it. But it's all accessible. It's all there for you to get, my nigga. You you can figure it out. 8 acres. They say it's $10K an acre for watermelons. You feel me? You could find something else to plant that's gonna yield you a decent return, so you can make your bread back and double it up, and be living rent free. If you throw you a property on it, you could build a motherfucking amusement park on 8 acres. You could build a whole city. Do you know that Tulsa, Oklahoma was built on 40 acres? Right? That's what they promised to one ex-slave, just one. 40. They built the whole city on 40 acres. You know what I'm saying? Niggas be hugging the block. They live in a 3-block radius the majority of their lives, nigga. What you think, shit, 8 acres is, that's a city to you. Most people ain't been to 8 acres worth of fuck. They ain't done 8 acres worth of travel in their own state. They don't have an 8-acre range of influence. They don't have an 8-acre range of, yeah, I spun the block, you know, for a 8-acre range spinning. Like, they don't even have that. So this is biting off more than you can chew. Try to figure it out. And we can be creating compounds and satellite communities where you go and visit your people who are your A-likes, who be alike and see alike, who like doing the same shit that you do. And then we can be comparable to a community like the Amish and not have to hate on their ability and willingness to dodge the bullet that's being shot by dominant society, by this motherfucking matrix. You know what I'm saying? They got up out of Dodge. You feel me? They got up out of Dodge. They have not bought into the devil's master plan. They like, nah, I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna stick with this shit over here. I'm gonna try to figure this Bible out for myself. However loosely interpreted this shit is, like they figured something out. At least they knew food, clothing, and shelter, nigga. Let's start there. So I used to live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I used to do business with the Amish. When I was making my 7 Heaven Seamoss up there, I was manufacturing my shit to bring it to the city. So I used to have to go to them to get material for my product. You know what I'm saying? So this is not a people who I'm even talking about that I observe from a distance. I used to be in their vicinity. I used to go to their businesses. I used to drive through their towns. I have to wait for the buggy cross. Feel me? I did business with these people. I know their demeanor. I definitely know that they are also an inbred people. You can see that, right? So that even makes it worse. You getting outsmart and out demonstrated by people who are inbred. So that should really give you the motherfucking confidence to say, yo, if I could get my mind right, I could do this shit. Cause some inbred people is running circles around me. And I love, you know, I wasn't always a driver because I come from New York City. And I used to walk for miles. But once I started driving in the South, I started really appreciating mobility and speed and being able to get things done. But I just as quick will get on the motherfucking a horse and a carriage, my nigga. I just as quick will learn how to ride a horse and go 120 miles per hour on horseback. Like, I'm not against none of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not against none of that. Like, all this shit seems fly to me. Building a house out of wood as a team, taking 3 or 4 days, and we build your house, then go and build mine. You feel me? I already showed you the other day. We got the garden popping over there. You know, I'm not the best green thumb, but I was able to discipline myself enough to take training and learn how to grow some shit. I'm a city slicker with Southern sensibilities that very much wants to be part of, like I said, you know, tap back into my primal inclinations into how to get around a patch of land. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to master city zones no more. I don't want to have to go to every city and visit the hood and try to master that terrain. For what? For what? The healing that we need as people is outside of the city. So if we are helpers/healers, then it's our job to go and find these high vibrational communities, these vortex centers and build. And if we want to demonstrate, if we really got this love for our people, where we want them to connect with what we have been able to discover about ourselves that we're so enamored with, then we would build something and invite them in. You know what I'm saying? We would build something and invite them in so they could come and participate, because they might not have the vision or the wherewithal to build it out on their own. But the thing is, if they don't have a hand in building it, would they have a hand in appreciating and how to restore it and defend it and cherish it and respect it? Because they still have, you know, as most of us do, we still got remnants of negativity in us. And negativity, by definition, is a self-destructive energy. You're going to self-sabotage yourself at some point if your operating system is strictly negativity. Well, wait on it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, my niggas. Yeah, so true story, like when I moved to Georgia, I was supposed to initially come here to do hemp farming, and the property that we were doing hemp farming on was originally a 400-acre parcel of property, of which 100 acres was allocated to us to do the hemp farming, but the licensing didn't come in time, and they didn't get approval for the state of Georgia, and then COVID happened, and then things shifted, you know what I'm saying, and I haven't necessarily gotten back to that space and that place where I'm just committing all of my time and my energy to focus on hemp farming. But my overall objective was to create a community called Hemptropolis, you know, on 100 acres of land, did a parceled out where we can build compounds collectively and we could defend ourselves and our lifestyle. And middle finger to any and everybody else that ain't with it. You know what I'm saying? These are some of the sustainable models and plans that, you know, should be initiated, not just entertained or conversed about. And then we did attempt, you know, I partnered with other people who were attempting to build communities out here in Atlanta, and the things didn't work. There's a lot of oversight that has to go into doing these things properly, especially when there's funds involved. My idea at the beginning that still stands today is that if we fully utilize technology, parcel payments and all of that stuff is on blockchains, so it can be observed and witnessed in real time. We still dealing with the lack of trust factor because we still dealing with fiat. We still dealing with their system. We're still dealing with an old antiquated way that sows distrust amongst our people where we can't get nothing done because niggas is niggas, right? Which means they're petty, which means they also always got an ulterior motive, which means that they're self-defeating and self-destructive, which means that they hold on, they don't say the shit that needs to be said, but they always get caught saying the wrong shit. So they got time to gossip about you, but they're too insecure to come and ask you for help. That's niggas. You know what I'm saying? Damn, son, why you was doing this all on your own and shit? Why you ain't asked for help? But you was the same nigga always talking about, yeah, man, them niggas can never do nothing on their own. They always got to be with somebody. Yeah, collaboration over competition. So you can ask somebody to invest in your idea or your program or your vision, but you won't incorporate those same people into asking them for advice when you get stuck, you know what I'm saying, or for an extra push to help you get out of a jam. You couldn't make your payments. You couldn't pool the resources from people who collectively have an incentive in seeing you win, but you want to keep it to yourself and then everything goes under and you pull everyone down with you. That's not cool, right? But that's the type of shit that's taking place right now in this community. When you know what I mean? When the Amish are setting an amazing example, you feel me, of what it's supposed to look like when you work together And shit, like I said, you could even be moving on your own fiction. It don't matter, my nigga. There's probably a community somewhere out there where they believe that, SpongeBob is their god. And as long as they got their shit situated and set up, right, you can train people to do anything. Your God don't even got to be real for this shit to work at this point. Because there is an innate energy, regardless of whether you acknowledge it or call it by the right name, that still operates in all of us while we attempt to get that shit right. And I'm willing to debate anybody on that without even debating them. You know what I'm saying? Fuck what you call your God. Peace. Because whatever you call your God is still working in the life of somebody else who you pointing fingers at, calling an infidel because they don't call your God the same name that you call them, nigga. How does your God decide when you niggas go to war, right? Like, what side does Allah take when Syria is being bombed by Iran? Or when the Christian colonizer is enslaving melanated African people who the whole goddamn religion came from their bloodline? How does that work? How does that work? How does God intercede in such a dichotomous situation? Right? This thing that you call God is permeating at any given time and all times through all things, especially if it's omnipotent and omnipresent, nigga. That by itself, by definition, means that it can't choose sides. And I don't want to say, when I'm like dumb fucks, I don't mean y'all. I don't mean y'all when I say dumb fucks. I mean to the people who are actually telling the rest of the world this shit but not listening to it themselves. With someone such as myself who is super observant, I'm going to come along and point the motherfucking contradictions out. Right? Like, how can that be? How could you be omnipresent but be selective at the same time? How could you be all things, all times, everywhere, but pull back because a nigga forgot or an inherent forgot a prayer for the day? He made 4 out of 5. But do you scale back? You know what I'm saying? You're minusing his Satoshis when it comes to, the total accumulation of his prayer bonus points at the end when he cash in at the pearly gates. And is it pearly gates for Muslims too? Do they pull up on Peter, or is it something different? Help me out, because I want to be accurate here and not disrespectful. Somebody help me out. I don't mean to be facetious. Just asking for a friend. Fukushima. I'm like, do we even have enough energy to talk about this? Because this gets me, this is emotional for me. I caught on to Fukushima when it happened, and I have been impacted by Fukushima ever since it happened. Same way I'm doing citizen journalism here. I was very active during 2011, you know what I'm saying? So I was on top of the news. This story, when I came across it, I could not let it go. I was magnetized to it because I was in the healing modality, and I was selling water. I was selling bottled water, alkaline water at the time. I was one of the first. May 1st, 2010, it was at a Queen of Food event at National Theater that King Simon threw on. That's where I introduced Soul Gold water as a bottled alkaline water. So that was my paradigm, water. And when I seen this about Fukushima in the ocean, I was impacted in a way in which I became like consumed by it. I moved to California the next year in 2012 to advocate, bringing CMOS to that region of the country because I wanted to increase the iodine intake of our people, especially the women, because they started already complaining about side effects, and none of the teachers were speaking about Fukushima, so nobody even knew why they was getting sick. But I was getting a lot of requests from the West Coast, for, I think we were selling the CMOS as a gel at that time, before we started doing the powder. Or I might have been selling powder before the gel. Either one, we was getting requests, and I was like, let me go over there and set up shop. And there was other reasons, but nonetheless, I went out there and I did, and I got a lukewarm response because people didn't know what CMOS was at the time. And if a master teacher don't say it, it don't matter. And Dr. Sebi's name did not hold weight in 2011 amongst the melanated population, especially of California, of LA. It was David Wolf. It was Michael Beckwith. There was a few other gurus, Deepak Chakra. Like if they said it, especially David Wolf at the time, if he said it, nigga, it was religion. You feel me? It was religion. But none of them were speaking on it. They actually were speaking against CMOS because of the properties of Caragen and how it was negatively impacting Caucasians who were utilizing CMOS in their cosmetics, specifically in their shampoo. And the reason why Caragen, if that's the correct word for it, was negatively impacting, you don't supposed to separate the plant like that. So they was isolating a compound and utilizing it for their hair, of which is a lot stringier than melanated texture. So they were hating on CMOS, especially because they have a white conscious community on the West Coast. I don't know if you understand that. And they're a lot more progressive than conscious communities in other regions of this country in regards to their finances, right? They would be considered what you call the New Age movement, right? Or the yogas and shit like that. They these niggas, these the ones with the motherfucking studios and shit in West Hollywood and Santa Monica and what you call it, Venice Beach, but on the white side, right? They got a conscious community out there too. Feel me? And so they wasn't co-signing CMOS, so I had a uphill battle, initially trying to expose our people to it. Even did what I had to do. I used to put banners up and posters and pass out flyers about Fukushima. You know what I mean? But yeah, the Bikrams, they got that bread though. They don't have poverty consciousness. That's the difference. And I noticed that because I was coming from East Coast, and I was like, East Coast is replete in poverty consciousness. They don't deal with abundance. You feel me? It's their inability to process the concept of faith not being a religious term first. So they threw the baby out with the bathwater on the East Coast dealing with consciousness, and they only delved into poverty consciousness dealing with lack because it comes from the struggle, right? It's tethered to the struggle. They didn't separate it from the struggle enough. And the struggle is on decline with all, revolution was taking a dive, right? Revolutionary has been replaced by gangster. So the resources ain't there. The light, the energy ain't there. The focus ain't there. The energy ain't there. None of that shit was there. We starting from the bottom with zero resources. So the West Coast was different, you know what I'm saying? But they wasn't into CMOS. And they wasn't talking about Fukushima, but people was showing up with thyroid issues. And then the deep sea creatures started washing up. In particular, an animal called an oarfish. Now, these quote-unquote deep-sea creatures were only spoken of in folklore. No one had ever seen these creatures prior to this, right? Even to the point, there was an elder that came on my show named Mata G. Healer. Like, the Dalai Lama and them niggas be visiting her crib, her ashram. She had an ashram in South Central. She was, she transitioned last year. May she continue to rise in power, but she was a heavyweight. She was telling me about visits she used to get to her from her crib from MJ, Tupac, all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they used to come and check when they was in trouble. They would come and see her. She's a top tier spiritualist, globally accepted and respected amongst global spiritual communities. You know what I'm saying? Of which they are very vast. Of which the conscious community is not even recognized because they don't have. Let me not get into that. So she came on the program and spoke about the ancestors, the Orishas in particular, were crying out that this radiation had burned through ethereal realms. Olukun at the bottom of the ocean, all of the ancestors, their hiding places were no longer safe. The shit was sounding like Little Mermaid, but I'm like, who am I to say different? I know the ocean is crazy. I know that everything that I was reading about the ocean at that time was crazy. And then they covered it up and they just stopped talking about it. And then I started going to the UN around 2015. And then I started meeting these Europeans, these older white women at the UN. And I think these are the same old white women that finally got to Rizza Islam, because they was telling me about autism back then. And I was just like, I didn't do anything with the information. I didn't know what to do with it. And they was the same shit that I hear Rizza Islam talk about with these white women that encountered him, or they probably encountered Farrakhan. They encountered somebody in the nation and gave them these statistics. That's the same thing they used to do to me at lunch. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, but they really wanted to talk to me about global warming and how it was a hoax. And they said they know because their husbands, their brothers, and their sons were involved. So these were like old white Jewish, you know what I mean? Like, they just was donors. They gained access to the UN because of their political affiliation status and their donor status. Their husbands gave all the bread up. And they became whistleblowers because they caught on to the agenda. So they was traveling all around the world when these different conferences would happen to confront these people who they know and make them tell the truth. And then they were also the ones leaking the information about the autism and the jabs. This was in 2015, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So my suspicions were always that they're not, because again, I was aggressively reading these stories before they canned them back in 2011 and 2012 when they were speaking about the emergency, the global emergency that was taking place because the ocean had overheated because a considerable amount of radioactive material leaked into the ocean after the Fukushima nuclear disaster plant was destroyed because of the tsunami that happened after the earthquake in Japan, or off of the coast of Japan, should I say. And then they don't talk about these stories no more. So I'm super suspicious when they say that the oceans are heating up around the world, right? And all of the climates are changing because of the currents. Mainly the currents are changing. That's why the weather patterns are changing, because of the global currents right? Florida water's now boiling to bathtub conditions, right? I remember in 2020, shout out to my brother Ampu, because I was telling him the other day I found the footage when we were in Miami in 21. No, I went back in 22 and had an experience, but in 2020, we were there and the water was like 80 degrees. You know what I'm saying? It was a temperate climate. We had sharks and stingrays swimming up to us. Of which I still, like I said, I got footage of all of this. We was on the boomies, so we were controlling our environment. We was on peace, and the sharks was on peace. The stingrays was on peace. There was schools of fish swimming up to us. It was on peace. Everything was peace. But the water was warm as a motherfucker. Now, I love warm water. You know what I'm saying? So I just find it interesting that they say this shit is reaching up to 95 degrees. How can ocean water be 95 degrees? What's supposed to survive and subsist in that? They're going to destroy all the coral reefs. The delicate balance of the ocean is being thrown, family. And they're not telling the truth. The global warming shit is a hoax if they're not talking about Fukushima. Right? But yet, they are getting ready to pour more radioactive water into the ocean. And they're going to increase it by more temperature and really throw this thing for a loop. And continue to throw it and make it a money grab for some trillions, knowing damn well that they can't fix the problem. You can't unremove the radiation that's spilt into the water. You can't scoop it up. It's radiation, nigga. Do you know what uranium and all of that shit is hitting for? It'll burn through anything. You know what the temperatures are that these rods are burning at? They're not going to cool down because they get in the water. No, they're going to heat the water up. So the water can't make them cooler, but they can make the water hotter. And that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing for over 10 years plus. That Fukushima has progressively warmed the entire planet up because they've been spilling radiation into the ocean for 10 plus years. Okay? Yeah. And I will be suspect of anything that comes out the ocean. Right? And I had a piece of salmon the other day. So I'm just telling you the truth. Right? And even if you want to look, if you want to even know about the truth of salmon, come to this retreat. We'll take you to the Klamath River. This is the place in the country where the salmon comes from. In Mount Shasta. You can look it up. Klamath, Klamath River. Right? This is where the breeding season of all the salmon takes place. And those places are in critical, dire straits as of the last 4 or 5 years where there was no breeding season for salmon. So I don't know where they're getting all the salmon from because the shit is not motherfucking breeding in Klamath County or Klamath River anymore. I don't know where they're getting the salmon from. I don't know where it's coming from. Because the natural place where the process used to take place at in Mount Shasta, or I think they call it Sisseco County, that breeding has not been taking place for a few years now because of the water that just hit in the beginning of the year after they locked up Tory Lanez, the sun, Daystar. Because remember, right after they locked the sun up on the West Coast, nigga, that's when the motherfucking weather changed on the West Coast. And it ain't been the same since. Right? But nonetheless, the inundation of rain that happened during the periods from January to March, they say that they solved the drought issue on the West Coast. So I would be interested to see if Klamath River has gotten back to normal and the salmon breeding season has returned, you know what I'm saying, to its true nature. But yeah, that's what's taking place. You know what I mean? Fukushima is something that cannot be overlooked. The implications of it are wild. You know what I mean? And it could speak to a lot of things that we're looking at that they don't seem to have an explanation for. They don't got no bars for that. They can't even explain it away if they wanted to. Right? They're just reliant on you being so fast asleep and so removed from recent news cycles, because I still consider 10-year news recent, nigga. If I'm up here telling you about shit that we researched from 1,000 or 10,000 years ago, right, nigga, 10 years ago is recent. You feel me? Let me see what else let me see what other bubble they wanted to bust with y'all in the news these past few days. So Red, yeah, Chipotle tests robots to prepare the avocado for guacamole. Nigga, I need one of those ASAP. Guacamole robots, yeah, send that. Right? I know y'all heard about this nasty shit. Right? The BBC, they caught one of them niggas with his pants down, fucking with the kids. I know some of y'all dealing with this shit. More than a third of Americans have a sleep divorce, survey finds. Do you sleep in the other room than your whiz or your main boo? Y'all going through that? Y'all occupying the same crib and sleeping in different rooms? Right? We need to talk to y'all, man. We need to talk to y'all. Right? Most stressed out cities, Cleveland and Detroit. Who's going through a sleep divorce? I want to have a whole interview with you at some point. Not now, but we need to talk. We need to find out what's going on in these households. Right? How to survive a blackout and a heat wave. Right? There's a lot going on. They saying that the grid system is being pulled on, is being overwhelmed by this unprecedented heat wave. Right? Temperatures to climb to even hotter levels. You feel me? The whole country is heating up. Right? They said it's unprecedented on the West Coast, Phoenix, matter of fact. 125 degrees, which is probably not that, unprecedented for Phoenix, but it's the amount of days and continuum that they say is throwing things off. Right? Humans were in South America at least 25,000 years ago. Right? Every day, they change these numbers. Every day they find something that resets their information. Think about the arrogance of the colonizer, though. I'm going to give you a minute because it's a lot to think about. So I'm going to give you a minute. Just think about the arrogance of the colonizer. Then I'm going to come with the ending of my sentence. Just think about it. He just found out that the world wasn't flat. Let's go in accordance with his teachings, right? And shout out to Red. He put something up about Christopher Columbus the other day that shattered any concept that they did not technically know where they were coming from. The map makers and the cartographers of his epoch, of his time, of his era, they all was telling about the new world, right? And think about this with religion. There's another article I could find that science said that they could prove that the galaxy is maybe 40 billion years old rather than 10 billion years, right? I got one of them articles I'm going to pull up in a second. But I'm like, think about how old religion is. or man's concepts of religion, because we don't know how old man is. But we could show evidence of him having some sort of celestial worship or acknowledgement of a creator for thousands upon thousands of years. I spoke to you about how advanced Kemet is. I spoke to you about how advanced Sumer is. I spoke to you even how advanced they're saying Atlantis is, right? And then you get a religion of sheep herders that comes along 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And that's the religion that has the planet in its grips. No technical advancements, no science to speak of, nothing marvelous, no architecture that wows the senses. You know, none of the architecture is part of the 8 wonders of the world, right? And architecture is the highest expression of somebody's masonry. So you have figured out all 7 liberal arts. You figured out arithmetic, mathematics, measurement. You figured it out. And then you build a structure that's so sound that it still survives 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. But you can't find these niggas' tombs from 2,000 years ago. But I was looking at TV the other day, and Zawi Hawass, who is a Egyptologist, went into a tomb in the Saqqara region and found a 4,500-year-old mummy still intact in the desert. In the desert. Buried in a pyramid. With all sorts of artwork on the walls. Underground. In the tomb. But you want to talk about advanced civilizations? You want to talk about science? You want to talk about intention? You want to talk about a pagan belief system that they went to those lengths to make sure that their people are going to the other side, but the best that niggas could do is funerals? And every funeral sound the same? And just the other day, I seen somebody put the motherfucking casket in their backyard, and people is making a big deal about that, not knowing that you could have been did that and changed and turned the status of your home into a ancestral burial. Like, why would you want to put Big Mama anywhere else? Digging up an ancestor of ours. Look, in the special with the Zawi Hawass, and I have a particular disdain for this individual that's unprecedented as well. Right? In the Zawi Hawass documentary on Netflix, when they unearthed one of our ancestors out of their tombs, they look at the inscription on the tomb. They look at the guardians that are put in place for the tomb, and these guardians are specifically put in place to guard the tomb from being disturbed. They move the guardians out of the way after reading the inscription and disturb the tomb. An unprecedented disdain I have for this individual. And the disrespect that has been afforded our ancestors in Kemet by Arabs. And I ain't fucking stutter either. So people will be up in arms about Travis Scott going to the pyramids and performing he might be performing a conjuring raising of the dead ceremony, right? But that still would not match the disrespect and the disdain for our ancestors that the Arab occupiers have had since they've been there, and the nerve that they have to tell you that you are making a case for our ancestors in that region of the planet being African when in fact they're not. That disrespect. And it's just, yeah, it's just, we live in unprecedented times right now. What haunts child abuse victims? The memory science finds. This was an interesting research that they did because it speaks to psychology. And they, when you speak to children or when you research children, now you're speaking about developmental psychology, especially if the target of the research is the brain, right? In this particular control study that they did with these children, they were gauging trauma. You feel me? They were gauging trauma and which children had more of a traumatic experience and why. The findings were very interesting. And I think it has implications for us as a people. We will be able to observe this study and get a better understanding of how we express our trauma. Right? So they interviewed 1,196 American adults repeatedly over 15 years about their level of anxiety and depression. Unbeknownst to the subjects, 665 of them have been selected because court records show they had suffered mistreatment such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect before the age of 12, right? But check this out. This is deep. And this speaks directly to our willingness as a people to trauma bond and how that within itself can be so detrimental. But this is the shit that we do. Uh, 493 adults who reportedly have been mistreated and were in court records substantiated their abuse had higher levels of depression, right? In the control group with no documentary abuse. All right, and then 252 of them reported being abused without court records reflecting it, also had higher levels. But the 103 subjects who did not report having been abused, despite court records that showed that it occurred, had no more distress than the general population, right? So what they were saying is that the people who sat on this shit and did not report it, even though that they had records of it and their records that these people have been abused, right? They did not express stress and distress. They showed the same levels of stress as the general population. The ones who spiked, right, and are showing repeated signs of, that particular stress, or they're showing spike levels of stress and they're showing repeated signs of them acting through that particular stress or through that trauma, they're the ones that are broadcasting or still wearing that trauma on their sleeves. You know what I'm saying? So they're trauma bonding, right? They're identifying with the trauma still. But the ones who have actively suppressed it, right, that don't participate in acknowledging it or have not trauma bonded around it, yeah, they all right. They okay. You know what I'm saying? So I know that they say you got to reveal it to heal it. But what about when we never get around to healing and it's just all about revealing, and then that shit becomes magnetic for trauma bonding and then everybody just want to do the woe is me together? There are many reasons why people may, in some ways, forget these experiences, and other reasons why others might misinterpret some of the experiences as being neglect or abuse. You know, I think that we have made too much of a culture of our trauma, you know what I mean, to actively engage in the level of healing that we say that we're seeking. Feel me? We have fallen too far and delved too deep into, you know, the tantalizing aspects of trauma. If you removed your trauma, would you be invited to the party anymore? If you removed your trauma, would you get the same attention? Right? If you removed your trauma, would there be anything special about you if you were just part of the normal general population? Right? Is your trauma the mechanism that you utilize to be seen and heard? Is this the first time that you've gotten the attention that you've been seeking all your life? Right? So now the trauma has become your calling card and your badge. And you refuse to put it down because it is the thing that magnetizes people in groups towards you. So, yeah, we want to bring some healing to the family. We got 2 retreats coming, one to Sedona, one to Mount Shasta, one at the end of August, the other at the end of September. There's links in the bio for both. I would recommend doing both, but if you can't do both, do one, but do something. You know what I'm saying? Tap in. It's an amazing offering. You're going to be up there with professionals. There's Reiki sessions and there's Reiki training taking place as well at the Sedona retreat. All right. So it comes highly recommended. I would definitely take full advantage of it if I were you. And we're gonna deal with some healing. Feel me? We're gonna deal with some of that ancestral healing as well. You know, how do we utilize the earth? How do we utilize our environment, our direct environment, to enhance our healing? You know what I mean? We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get through it. All right. Thousands of species of animals probably have a consciousness. Again, you know, I just want to reiterate, these are the people that you're dealing with. They're so late to the party. Even though they derive from a system. We went through this during the July 4th weekend. We read the definitions of a religion called deism, and I'll spell it for you. D-E-I-S-M, or deist. D-E-I-E-S-T. All right, deist. And if you look up the definition of deist, right, you'll find that this is a religion based on, it almost sounds like it's the same thing as animism. And animism is what they say that our ancestors were into in the forests, in the jungles, the ones that they call the pagans or the heathens, right? Because they had a firm understanding that consciousness existed in all things, that even if I pick up a stone, I'm like, yeah, there's life force in it. There's vitality in it, right? The animals have a consciousness. The insects have consciousness. Plants have consciousness, right? So the founding fathers of this country, according to the narrative that's being presented, were deists. They were into deism, and they were not necessarily Christians. If anything, they would call themselves Christian deists. And they said Christian deists, or deists for that matter, utilize logic and reason. which is masculine, that's left brain activity, but also these were people who believed that there was an animating force in all things, especially in nature. Now that is feminine. That is right brain activity, divine feminine. So even the founding fathers had a system where it seems that they was able to strike a balance. You feel me? And if the founding fathers knew, or according to their belief system, if they felt that there was life animated in all things, how does the children of the colonizers not know that? Where there's just finding out through science, of which there's measurements. Western science does not incorporate Eastern philosophy, so they don't believe that there are spirit. They don't understand the science of spirit according to what they'll tell you on the surface. Now they have a whole religion of science that deals with this particular aspect. You feel me? A whole religion of it. But on the surface, they say, we don't understand spirit. It can't be quantified or measured, right? They don't have a way to apply it to scientific method to prove the tangibility of it. So they say, according to them, it does not exist because it cannot be quantified. They don't have a definition for consciousness in the Western world. I keep explaining this. They don't have a definition for intelligence in the Western world because they do not incorporate an understanding for spirit in the Western world. And light is intelligence. So they don't even know they don't know the length. They don't know, they have theories about light, how fast it travels, what it's composed of, X, Y, and Z, but they don't fully understand it because they don't fully understand consciousness, nor do they fully understand intelligence. And these are the people that we're following. So after they have already eradicated entire species of animals, right? Then these same people are going to turn around and tell you, oh, yeah, we think that we found out that, everything has consciousness, even though we don't know what the definition of consciousness is. Oh, we're going to create something that's artificially intelligent, even though we don't know what the definition of intelligence is. Because intelligence is hemisync. You got to utilize right brain and left brain, right, in order to have a super consciousness, which is that middle path. But if you don't utilize Eastern philosophy, if you don't acknowledge it, then you're not acknowledging the right brain. So how can you ever create hemisync to be super conscious or super smart or super intellectual, right? Because you can't do it just out of one hemisphere. But this is the game that they're playing. And these are the people, once again, who as a society, we're following off of the cliff. This is what they meant by the blind leading the blind. How you niggas just now finding out that animals have consciousness? But you sit up there and playing all these games with your dogs and your cats. And then you're testing everything else on fucking mice and monkeys. So if you're going to test things on mice and monkeys that's supposed to be consumable for humans, how can you factor in the testing absent the consciousness or the spirit of that animal? This is the shit that I don't get. Ready for my treehouse and to go back into the woods and mind my business. Baby want a treehouse too, right? Or baby want a tree. I done found me somebody who's willing to live with me in my treehouse. In the woods somewhere, so I'm good. Find you somebody that you can, be primal with. And then, you know what I'm saying? Then we good. We can build these compounds and be laughing about this shit in 4 or 5 years. When are we gonna be tired of trauma bonding? And being cramped up in the city, stacked on top of one another, right? Fake flexing. Nigga, that's trauma bonding. You know what I'm saying? Fuck what you did for the block. Fuck the block, nigga. Fuck that building. Fuck that building your mama paying rent in. You know what I'm saying? Go get you some land, my nigga. Like, get in contact with the soil. You feel me? Know what it's like to have worms moving through your fingers again. Go eat some fucking dirt if you need to. Reacclimate yourself, nigga. Get out of that monster mind that you in. Negro, you won't grow above your knees. You chasing motherfucking city clout. You a city boy and a city girl, nigga. Come on now. It's nothing to talk about. Alright. Oh, it's a show called Primal. I'm gonna check it out. A group of scientists are trying to figure out how it works in the brain. They found consciousness in animals before they found consciousness in the humans, and they want to reverse engineer to figure out how consciousness works in humans by attempting to figure out how it works in animals. Nigga, that's putting the fucking cart before the horse. Don't you think you're a little too late? And the fucking up of the planet to now figure out how consciousness works? This is what they selling y'all. So, yeah, man, I'm good on that, man. Like, whew. Man, oh man. This shit gets crazier and crazier and crazier. But fret not. There's always an alternative. Right? You could just unplug from this shit and walk away. Count your losses and then count your blessings. Look, and I'm not a flat earther, but I gotta point this article out. A new technique uses some images to gauge the strength of ancient and active rivers. They say beyond Earth. They say beyond Earth. That's what this article heading says. So I'm like, here these niggas go playing into this flat Earth shit. Like, and they show you the map. And they say beyond Earth. So I'm like, what is y'all trying to tell us? They have found a way using imaging to gauge ancient rivers and how they are active beyond Earth. So what's beyond Earth, my nigga? Are you talking about flat Earth, the firmament? Like, what you niggas talking about? Where we at with this? So it's a lot. It's a lot going on, man. There's a lot of shit in the news, man. There's a lot going on. Science is wonky. You know what I'm saying? They be crashing into each other. I don't know how science and religion exist at the same time in this country because they be canceling the fuck out of one another. Okay, I hit on this and I ain't cover it all the way, but the copyright for the Bible is owned by the Crown. And as I explained during the coronation of King Charles, you do understand that they are saying that they are the direct descendants of the bloodline of David, the Davidic bloodline. It's supposed to be the Lion of Judah. This is the bloodline that Selassie comes out of. You know what I'm saying? You do know that they usurped that title and that throne and got the nerve to be in pictures with, you know what I'm saying, with these individuals, but they jack their whole swag. You do know that. You do know that the CNC is the crown and the church. You do know that they work hand in hand. You do know that the Queen is the biggest real estate holder on this planet next to the Vatican. You do know this, right? So you do know that the copyright, I don't care whether King James was black or not, or melanated, right? I could care less. You do know the copyright for that Bible, though, right, is owned by the Crown, the British Crown. Right? You do know that you should not be trusting anything that comes out of the copyright of the British Crown or the scrutiny of the eye of the British Crown, especially if you understand the legacy of John Dee, who was the spiritual advisor to Queen Elizabeth's mother, right? And he also was the one who conjured up what's called the Enochian language, the angel letters. He was a conjurer. He used occult sciences and black magic, right, to gain the seals of Solomon, to unlock these seals. Hence the fact that this small-ass island has such a global dominant control, especially over other regions, land, you have to understand who John D is, right? You have to understand the hand that John D has played into biblical sabotage of, like I said, some of the most delicate things would be the angelic realms, the angelic languages. You know what I'm saying? How these people were spellcasters. He is the prototype that they formulated 007 from, an individual named John D. This is who John D. Rockefeller was named after. 1611 is when this book appears, right? Called the King James Bible, the product of a team of 50 scholars. It relied extensively on Tyndale's work, using around 80% of this once heretical translation. It remains the most printed works in English in the world. Right? So, let's always keep this in note as we sitting up here arguing with one another, pointing fingers, clawing each other's eyes out, like we've all been lied to. They finessed us all. You know what I'm saying? They got us in the cage like pits. Mandingo wrestling. And yeah, like they the culprits. They getting off scot-free. They don't get none of the smoke. They don't get none of our collective activity. You know what I'm saying? They get to ride off into the sunset. And you ambulance chasing. You know, this is the history of how Great Britain was founded. But then you got to go back to the Colberts to find out the British royal line comes from a Moorish bloodline out of Bavaria. Right? All of this is accessible, easy on Google. Like, you don't even got to go to Bavaria to do it. You can research it from the comfort of your home to find out what the truth is and who these people are. And why they say the things that they say, and why did they stand in the posture that they're standing in with your shit on. With your shit on. So again, that just might give you the impetus to want to become yourself again. Because if you could see the power of you and someone cross-dressing as you, right? So if a young girl can look at a transvestite and see the beauty in being a woman, right? Maybe she would want to be all woman when she grows up. Not like drawing the motherfucking circus clown makeup on. That was a bad analogy. But for lack of a better one, you know, because they are cross-dressing and pretending to be you, cosplaying. Yes, they are doing that. And if you thought that you've ever seen any power in them, then just imagine how much power you would be if you stood in your proper persona, in the proper person of who and what you are, in alignment with your life mission, your ancestral calling, you know what I'm saying, and your spiritual assignment. I'm not qualified to tell you what that is. But at some point in your life, if you don't come into a personal self-realization of it, I hope that you get a reading and find out what that is. I hope that that can be extrapolated from you so you can see it, activate, and move on that principle. So we could bring more dynamism into the world, more dynamicness into this realm. So we could put extra layers on our magnificence as a people into this modern day narrative, because we are caught up in all of the marvelous shit our ancestors did. What are we adding on to that narrative and that story? What new chapters are we putting into the book of life? You know what I'm saying? This speaks to us getting greater and greater as a people. But you got to be a great person first. You feel me? That's why I want to take time and have these personal conversations with whoever may be out there listening that needs to hear this information, because it is wholeheartedly my belief, and I'm going to stand on that, that once the signal goes up and I'm obeying Spirit to say, Spirit is like, go live, talk about this. All right, well, there should be somebody in the audience that needs to hear it. You know what I'm saying? For transformational reasons, somebody that's going to take this information and actually be compelled to do something with it, as I am. Right? So whoever that is that I'm speaking to, you feel me? You're one of the main reasons that I felt compelled to do this, to share the information in the way in which that I'm sharing it. You know what I'm saying? And that's good enough for me. So with that, I want to say peace, love, and light. Again, check the links out in the bio for the retreats. If it's anything that you seem interested in, that you feel that you can potentially benefit from, you know, look into it. Once again, we're willing to work with whoever's willing to work with us. So, you know, just feel free to reach out. You never know, you know what I mean, how you can be a participant, you know what I'm saying, even if your funds is not all the way where they need to be. We still need volunteers. So please feel free to tap in and take advantage of what's being provided, because, you know, I know that the packages that we put together, the presentation, and, you know, everything is top tier. You know what I mean? So with that said, I appreciate you.